without wasting any more time, let's move on to the presentation. This case is of last year. There is a reason why I have picked it up. We'll see as the story progresses. A very simple and ordinary test can change the course of a patient's journey, and this is what will show up in the story of this patient. So we had this patient, a 55 years old male, diabetic, well controlled on oral hypoglycemic agents, hypertension since long duration on losartan, non-critical coronary artery disease on anti-epileptics, no other known comorbidities. His initial presentation was with history of fever, which was initially low grade, which converted to high grade, intermittent rigors and chills. In addition, there was a gradually progressive pain in the right thigh associated with diffuse swelling and tenderness. There were large joint arthralgias, minimal dysuria, fatigue, weakness, and weight loss. With these clinical symptoms, the patient had presented in the emergency of another hospital. What we could gather from the data, as mentioned in the progress notes of the other hospital, the discharge summary. In addition, we took the history from the patient also. There was no history of trauma to the affected limb, no history of any drug abuse, no history of any recent bacteremic illness, any history of restricted physical activity or confinement to the bed. There was some amount of pedal edema, pretibial edema, or periorbital puffiness. There was no history of arthritis, skin rash, oral ulcers, or photosensitivity. The labs, the clinical features included him being febrile, toxic looking, had tachycardia, had pallor, some amount of edema. There was a right thigh diffuse swelling associated with tenderness, which was predominantly seen more anteriorly. The overlying skin was warm to touch and erythematous. Systemic examination was generally unremarkable, except for the things that I just mentioned. His old investigations were available. His initial kidney function test was normal. Subsequently, in late July, a repeat test was done which showed 3+ protein, 4 to 5 WBCs. Creatinine was around 2.5, electrolytes were normal. These were the tests which were available from the other lab. The other tests included TLC. He had leukocytosis, mild thrombocytopenia, sugars were little high, some amount of transaminitis, viral markers were negative, and blood culture was sterile. X-ray showed minimal bilateral pleural effusion. Ultrasound showed some amount of fatty liver and normal sized kidneys. Doppler did not show any DVT. Now this was the MRI thigh. I would show you the other image. If we look in the right thigh, there is a lot of edema in the intermuscle planes. Also, there is some amount of fluid collection, which shows tendency towards abscess formation. And that is what was mentioned in the report also. Intra and intermuscle plane edema in all compartments of right thigh and muscles of right side of pelvis, with areas of focal collection and abscess formation. With this data, he was managed as right thigh pyogenic myositis with sepsis with acute kidney injury in a patient who had previous diabetes, hypertension, and a non-critical CAD. What they did was they gave IV antibiotics and, as we expect, surgical debridement and pus drainage. The pus culture was sterile for any infections which were sent from the other hospital. The fever resolved, there was resolution of pain, there was an improvement in overall general condition. Subsequently, 8 weeks later, patient again had fever. Again had periorbital puffiness, drop in urine output, some amount of slurring of speech, right lower limb weakness. He had tachycardia, again a neutrophilic leukocytosis, ESR was through the roof, and creatinine at this level had gone up from 2.5 to 5.5. So there was an initial response, but again patient was worsening. That's where we received him. When we saw him, the first contact was he was sick looking, had a poor nutritional state, he had flaps, there was tachycardia, some amount of pallor and pedal edema. There was a left breast lump which was freely mobile, mildly tender, overlying skin, there wasn't any erythema or induration. There was a right thigh diffuse tender swelling with overlying skin induration and erythema. The right plantar was upgoing and left was equivocal. So we thought maybe, so to summarize, we had a diabetic and hypertension patient who had a recurrence of fever with right thigh myositis. In addition, now he had slurring of speech, right leg weakness with asterixis. There was a left breast lump which was not mentioned in the previous records. He had arthralgias, weight loss, anemia, leukocytosis, thrombocytosis, transaminitis, and acute kidney injury with proteinuria. Now we thought, what were the possibilities? We thought maybe this is a recurrent pyogenic myositis with satellite lesions. One. Second thing was fungal myositis with satellite lesions. These two possibilities came to our mind because he was a diabetic, an immunosuppressed person. In addition, recent investigations which had been done in the other hospital were hinting towards one of these two possibilities. We also thought about disseminated tuberculosis, HIV with opportunistic infections. So with this background, we proceeded. Now, these were the investigations. The initial investigations confirmed which already had been seen in the previous set of investigations. Now, what happens? There are various names by which KFT test is ordered. If you look at different labs, I'll give you an example. There is a lab from 1 mg, if you get a result, potassium level is not mentioned in the KFT. Right? There are other labs where calcium is not mentioned in the KFT. There is another lab from where bicarb is not mentioned in the KFT. But every data point has information to contribute to the patient's journey, and this is what happened here. The patient's calcium was 16.3, phosphate level was 9.2, parathormone was suppressed, it was 2.8, uric acid was 19.3, and LDH was 351. We had initially just done calcium. The rest of the things were done subsequently. So this high level of calcium actually changed our diagnosis on what we are dealing with here. We did other tests also. We did vasculitic markers. We did ACE level to look at sarcoidosis. It was negative. We looked at myeloma profile. Serum protein electrophoresis and kappa lambda chain ratio was normal. And then we did a biopsy of the left breast lump, which was one area where we could have got some tissue diagnosis to look at what was happening. So the biopsy showed non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, diffuse large B-cell type. A guy who was previously being managed as a pyogenic myositis or some other myositis actually had a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. In addition, we did a PET-CT which showed extensive spread of the non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. The right adductor compartment muscles were any which way involved. There were other muscles also like right parascapular, left pec major, left thigh muscles. Everything was involved with the high SUV max was seen in all these areas. He also had, as I mentioned, he had asterixis, slurring of speech, and right leg weakness. So an MRI was in order, which showed reduction of flow signals in left transverse and sigmoid sinuses. There was some evidence of cortical vein thrombosis. So how we managed was, he did require dialysis for 2 weeks duration. There was treatment of hypercalcemia. Dialysis was part of that. In addition, for the uremia which he had, he required IV antibiotics, blood transfusion, supportive care, and then he was referred to the medical oncologist for initiation of chemotherapy. Subsequently, at the time of discharge, he did have some amount of symptoms which he had initially presented with, but his reports were more compatible and situation was improving. He was started on chemotherapy once the sepsis was taken care of. 20 weeks later, he had a creatinine of 1.4. He came walking to the OPD. The proteinuria had resolved, which initially was almost about 2.5 grams. So that was a happy and thankful patient. The final diagnosis which we made was an extranodal non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, DLBCL type, paraneoplastic cortical vein thrombosis, paraneoplastic hypercalcemia with hyperuricemia, multifactorial AKI. Underlying glomerulopathy we couldn't prove, but there was a suspicion. He did have proteinuria. It could have been diabetic nephropathy or some amount of NHL-related glomerular pathology. In addition, he had a pyogenic plus neoplastic myositis with sepsis and MODS in a patient who had a background history of diabetes, hypertension, and CAD. So coming to renal paraneoplasia. The paraneoplastic syndromes, which kidney can show up as in association with various tumors, could be myriad. Like we could have a tumor lysis syndrome, hypercalcemia of malignancy. Renin-producing tumors could show up as hypertension, hypokalemia. Glomerulopathy can show up as various types of glomerular diseases like membranous nephropathy, minimal change, IgA. So you'll see proteinuria on urine routine exam or presence of microscopic hematuria. Patient may show up with tubulointerstitial disorders. Again, that will only show in a KFT where there is a rise in creatinine or alteration in electrolyte levels. Then there might be a thrombotic microangiopathy or hemolytic uremic syndrome or a syndrome of inappropriate secretion of ADH. Renal involvement in lymphoproliferative disorders directly which involve the glomeruli, most commonly that is seen with CLL or SLL, DLBCL and other non-Hodgkin lymphomas. It's more common with B-cell lymphoma. Why it happens, we don't know. Maybe the tumor antigens are responsible, or there are certain proteins which are produced by the tumor that is responsible. We are not very clear on why that happens. Sometimes that is associated with presence of M band of IgM type, or it may be associated with cryoglobulins, or there are certain lymphoproliferative disorders which may overlap with SLE. So ANA may be positive. Now, various patterns have been reported. There are all sorts of them have been reported. The best way to diagnose, the initial set of diagnosis would include measurement of blood pressure, urine routine exam, and a KFT. Once they hint towards which direction we are going, we may ultimately have to do a kidney biopsy. For this patient, we did not do a kidney biopsy because the patient had undergone a lot of things. With treatment, he was improving, so he wanted to defer kidney biopsy. We were also in agreement, since the patient is improving, there was no point in being invasive in a patient who was stabilizing. So that was all about the case that I had to present. The important thing is that we have to look at all aspects of investigations that have been ordered. If we have ordered a urine routine exam, we have to look at it. If there is a KFT, a calcium had been missed in the previous hospital. If at all they had picked it up there, the case would have been presented by a different doctor, and I might not have been there. So thank you very much.